Good morning. This is the second part to the hands off movement, hands off video that I made a few days ago. Over the weekend, this last weekend, there was a have hands off protest. I call it gathering. I guess you can call them protests if you want. It's okay. And there was these hands off protests, and there were just an enormous amount of people that showed up to these things. So to answer your question, Mitch, no, I'm not asking about how I can join a liberal movement. That was not my intention. My intention was just to ask the question, how do these movements happen? I didn't hear about it. Nobody notified me. It may have been because I'm not liberal. I'm not left winged. I don't I don't have those a lot of those belief systems. I do have more of a centrist belief system, and I think that if you are more centered, you're hated by both the left and the right, and I've just kind of come to accept that. I was told that very early on when I was growing up, and I say growing up, this was after I graduated high school, and I was starting to get into politics a little bit, and I didn't pay attention in school very well, so I didn't learn too much. That's my own fault. I was more involved with wrestling, and that was basically my entire life in high school. But then when I got out of high school, um, I became a Christian. I started to see things more on I guess, a more mature, more societal concept. What's my role in society? That was what my coach, thank you, Coach Bob Weir, for training me in that aspect, and that it's not really about being a champion wrestler. His goal was for him to produce young men that were uh, providing in society, that were benefiting the society. And that's kind of been my goal, and I was just trying to figure out how to do that now that I'm kind of leaning away from wrestling. How can I benefit society? What is society? What is community? What is government? What is taxes, or laws, or rights, or freedoms, and all these things that I probably should have learned in high school and middle school. But like I said, that wasn't my concern in high school. So now that I'm learning about them, I decided to take the test, some random online test about, are you Democrat or are you Republican? Are you left or are you right? And I had no idea. So I took the test, and the test got mad at me and says, you are in the center. You need to figure out if you're going to be left or you're going to be right. It doesn't seem like you know who you are. It doesn't seem like you're sure of yourself. Uh, you need to figure this out. You need to choose one side or the other. But you're too. And that was the response. And from that test, that was random online test, and I've kind of figured out that to be true. I've always been more in the middle. Haven't grown out of that, uh, and that's just the way it is. So I'm not looking to join any movement, but I am interested in just how things get started. That was very interesting to me. It could have been a right wing demonstration, and I would have had the same interest, not in the views, but or what they're standing for, but how does something like that get organized so fast with so many people? I think is always interesting. It does kind of. I do get a little bit afraid when things like that pop up. Um, I just kind of worry about rioting, and it seems like a joke to a lot of people if left wing people are joining together, and they, why would you worry about us rioting? Or if right people get together, they say the same thing. Why would you worry? And both sides have examples of the other side rioting. We're worried about it because you guys did this in this year, and the other person says, well, we are worried about you guys rioting because you guys did this in this situation. And it happens on both sides. I've seen it over the decades, both people. It seems, if I'm just being honest, that it does happen more on the left with the rioting. I know that these are some very hot topics, very big issues, and uh, just the stats. That's all I'm saying is it does happen more on the left when there's gatherings or demonstrations or protests. Really, the only two, I just spit a whole bunch. The only two instances that I can think of right wing protests, I would say like legitimate protests. I'm sure there's a lot more, but I just don't think that they were significant enough. I remember the Tea Party going on a while ago. That was at the same time I'd mentioned in the video when I went to the Capitol to write the letter to the governor, and there was actually a Tea Party demonstration there on the same day. I don't know if that was planned or orchestrated that we're gonna go there that same day. It kind of seems like it might have been, but anyways, I still don't know enough then to ask those kinds of questions. And then of course the January 6th organizing protests, or rioting that happened. I still don't have all the facts on that. I get told one way or another. I have a lot of questions that I don't really ask because I kind of been to myself, to my family, to my business. But what this podcast is meant to do is ask a lot of the questions that I feel like have been unanswered from a lot of other people. And I do have those questions, but I don't know that I just haven't had the interest of doing all the research. And so we're going to talk about this conversation that took place in the comments from the last video. Sorry about this noise really quick. I try not to move that again. There was I wouldn't say, it was probably a little bit heated between Mitch and Brandy. Becca got involved a little bit. I do want to thank you guys for participating in that conversation. I did get a lot out of it. I did appreciate it. Yeah, it got a little mean, I guess, and that's just, how it goes with these types of conversations. I myself did not participate in the conversation. I didn't have the energy. I'm not a very fast typer. I still text with one finger on each letter. Very slow process. And a lot of times when I finish something, I'll delete more than half of it and replace it with a single sentence, or it's just too much work for me. So I let you guys do all the hard work. I don't apologize for that. This video is not meant to incite more commentary. If you wish to do so, that's okay. We're all free, and it's a public post. We're all free to make whatever commentary we want. I believe nobody threatened anybody or to do anybody harm. So yeah, to get into it, I will award Becca as the winner of the conversation. In second place was Brandy, and then honorable mention to Mitch for your contributions. You played I would call it the antagonist, and then I would say Becca was the protagonist, and I don't know if there's a word for how Brandy was going about it, but she stood her ground. She made a lot of good points. You made a lot of good points. If you're listening, like I said, I won't respond in the comments. I don't have the time or the energy for that stuff. I would like you, Brandy, to be on the show somehow. I doubt that you have any interest in it. I'm not saying that you would. I don't know how that would happen, through a phone call, through a Zoom. Come out to Iowa and be here in person. Otherwise, I do plan on hosting people that are like-minded uh, in that aspect, that have those same questions and concerns that you were sharing, and examples that you were sharing. I always okay to learn from both sides of the coin. You're right. We do live in a very nuanced society. That's always been true, and it's being more and more so. It seems like. I do have the stance that it's really all the same. Society really hasn't changed in the thousands of years. There's always been complications. There's always been corruption and hatred and love and a new way and a new form. We're still experimenting. I would still call this an experiment in the United States. We've only been here for a few hundred years, and it still is an experiment, and I think it's working better than anything else. But history is the long game. We have a long ways to go to see if this experiment will work. I hope that it does, and I hope that our children can benefit from what we have had given to us by our ancestors. And I know that in that process, there's always been turmoil, a lot, especially being a second generation Mexican and being Native American, growing up on the res. We hear a lot of hatred for what was done to our people. I myself don't hold those same sentiments. Um, it's absolutely was a tragedy what took place. I haven't found a land anywhere on the world where that does not take place, and is still taking place to this day. You think about slavery. We were told how bad slavery was, and even in high school, we were learning that slavery today is far more existent. There's far more slavery taking place in the world today than there was 200 years ago. I believe that to be true, and that's very terrible. So I do appreciate, as bad as our country, bad as the shape our country is in, um, I don't know of any other place that I would choose to live or choose to raise my kids to live. So I'm going to go into these comments a little bit. I have taken up a lot of time already. That's basically all of the time that I would want to take. I haven't even talked about the comments. I have 4 pages here. These are all comments. I don't know that I can get through all of them, or that I will get through all of them. I will say that Brandy, you first talked about how public education is under attack, books are being banned, teachers are censored, and curriculum is being rewritten to erase honest history. The thing to kind of set that premise, I would say, is this president has been in office for 4 months, and maybe those things are underway, but when we talk about censoring, that's been the case, I think, very heavily the last 4 years, and the last, I don't know when it's been the highest, when it's been the lowest. I don't have those demographics, but I can just think like the big issue is what is sex and what is gender. Are there differences? Are the same? And Brandy, you brought this up in a later message about how they are different and the science is behind it and so forth. And okay, I don't mind that narrative. What I'm talking about is, if you have that stance on this side, and there's another stance on this side, then shouldn't they both be on the same bookshelf? And in these last 4 years, it seems like anything that's on this side, that's what's been taken off. Like, you can't say there's 2 genders, there's male and female. That's what has been censored. In my experience, going through the libraries and talking and seeing people speak on the platform, on media platforms, if they say that, they're incredibly scrutinized and just kind of hated among the people. You can talk about how people were banning people on Twitter, which is, I don't think that Elon Musk had any um, hopes or wants to uh, buy up a media platform. I think he just got sick of all of the censoring that was going on in one direction. You couldn't say anything if you went on Twitter and said a man is not a woman, you would instantly be hated. People would find out your address. They would go to your address. It was just so bad. And you, if one of the other, so you couldn't be on Twitter, Twitter would cancel you immediately. You wouldn't have a platform. You wouldn't have a page, nothing. And that's censoring. That's what's been happening. So to say that public education is under attack, books are being banned, teachers are censored, curriculum is being rewritten, I think that's been more heavily done so from the left in these last few years. Not to say that the right hasn't participated in it and that they won't participate it here in the future or even in the near future. I know there's a lot of fears of what's happening, but like I said, we've only been in this presidency for 4 months, and it may seem like it to you that this is it feels like forever, but I remember these last 4 years, me being, I'm 38 now. These last 4 years have been the longest 4 years of my life. And just from government policies and societal changes of not even being able to say your opinion. If you think that a man is a woman, just instant hatred from the people and from the community. I mean, like I said, people will flip your cars, they'll smash your windows, they'll destroy whatever it is that they can destroy of you. They'll do, we've seen that happen. And then it's just been really bad. You get people like, even right now, they're burning Teslas, and it's like, what does Tesla have anything to do with these policies? This was a company that was started. I was going to look up this information. I didn't, but maybe it was started 10 or 15 years ago. And it was largely embraced by the left, these Tesla vehicles, and it was the right wings, people who were against it because it's electric vehicles. Don't touch our oil, don't touch our gas. Well, these vehicles are being powered by minerals that are being mined in these third world countries, and the people are basically being enslaved to provide for these minerals. If you have any type of phone, the things that are make your phone operate are being mined in a horrific way from these lands. They could be rainforests, they could be deserts, they could be any type of cultural people are being turned into slaves to make these products. And so that seems like an issue that would have been hated by the left when it first came out, but the left were so happy to have these electric vehicles and really pushed for this electric economy that we're moving towards. And now all of a sudden it's the worst thing, and he's a billionaire. What were the words here? I probably won't find it right off the bat. It just, I don't know what that had to do with anything, and why people are vandalizing people's property because they've chosen to drive a Tesla. And for a lot of instances, they're the same people that bought them to enrich the electric movement so that we could not be so reliant on gas and oil. And now, because somebody has made that choice, now the left is completely turned and says, you're a Nazi, you're a fascist, you're a dictator if you drive or have a Tesla. That's absurd. I know that that's not a large case scenario, but I don't see anybody in the circle that I have where people from the left are saying are telling each other, hey, stop flipping Teslas. What are you guys doing? Right. So that's one point. There's a few others on here. I mentioned the peaceful protest. Is it peaceful? Is not peaceful? There's nothing wrong with having a peaceful protest. I do remember when they were having rioters. I didn't look up this information either, but there was a few years ago. I think it was during COVID, or maybe it was a couple years ago, when basically people were encouraged to riot, and I think it was due over some type of civil rights movement where there was a a person of color, black, I think, and they were victimized somehow, and the courts ruled against their favor. I don't know if I have this correct, but for some reason, there were people. I don't know if it was the Black Lives Matter or if it was something else, but there were people that were going around city to city inciting riots. Like, it's nighttime, it's time to riot. And I remember people in my own town here, a small town of Mason City. It's called Mason City, but it's actually kind of a smaller town. We're worried that these people were going to come here and start vandalizing the stores and setting cars on fire, and taking over the streets. You couldn't drive on the street because people would and it's like, how in the world is this at the same time defund the police weren't getting involved. People were allowed to go into stores and take whatever they want, and the people at the stores were told not to do anything about it. And it's like, this is not a country. This is not a town that I would raise my kids in, to think that this is okay. What happens if one person says that it's not okay for you to come into my store and steal and vandalize? That person is going to get beat up pretty bad, and that shouldn't happen on the left or on the right. And I know that there's a lot of hatred going towards the right because it seems like it's unfair, it's skewed one way. The right are allowed to beat people up and get away with it. I don't share that sentiment at all. Um, it's not the answer to commit violence against somebody. There's no love in that, and I think as Christians that we should be demonstrating love and empathy. We are the ones who are told and commanded by our Savior that if somebody hits you, you offer them the other cheek to hit as well. We don't have a place here on earth. We're doing our best, and I think that's why I'm going to give Becca the first place. I think she did the best in the conversations. Like, we're trying our best to have this society here, but we have peace knowing that we have a better country, and that country is in Christ, and will be received. We all have our parts and sin to play, and the troubles that have happened here, and we're depending on the blood of Christ to forgive us of those sins, and that our hope is in Him, that He will forgive us and that He will welcome us into His city that we do believe is a perfect and better country. And that's the one we're hoping for, and have peace in knowing that that already exists. Meanwhile, it is true, we are still here. We pay taxes, we live in houses, we have kids. We love education, we love things to be discovered. All things are created by God, and there's a few Bible verses about how He rewards those people who seek and look for wisdom. That's the ones that He gives the wisdom to. It's not like you wake up in the morning and don't do anything, and God says, hey, why don't I just give you some wisdom for sitting there and not doing anything? And it says that He gives it to people who seek it and who look for it and work for it. So that's our part. We're always looking. We should be looking and seeking for wisdom, for God's wisdom. And that's what I'm trying to do here. I hope that that's what we are all trying to do here. I really don't care what side of the political party it comes from. but just so long as that we do have wisdom. There's a lot more that I want to talk about. I'm not going to go through it all. I'm nearing a half hour now, and my notes aren't that clear. I could do a better job writing notes. I'm kind of doing this on my lunch break. I do appreciate you guys. I appreciate your commentary. And just, if you can keep it civil, if you can't keep it civil, I understand too. It's sad to see that we can't have just a regular discussion. I didn't see, like I said, it didn't get too bad, but it could have gotten there, and that's not what the point of these videos are for. I appreciate you guys. I hope you can just keep learning from each other. And if you have any questions for me, feel free to ask them in the comments. I don't know that I'll answer them in text. I probably won't on the thread. If I feel like it's something I need to address in the video, I'll do so like this. Otherwise, hope you guys have a good weekend. Looking forward to more from you guys. I have a lot more to say on this subject, but I really don't want to do that now. My lunch break's about up right now, so I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks. Bye.